Hello everyone, and welcome back for another build video here on the CR Steve channel. This week we'll be doing a build on a welded rail car here, a Conrail one specifically. This is something a lot of you guys asked for, so we're going to go ahead and dive in here. Now, I'm giving you guys the full CR Steve experience here. You can see we have our Bowser F30 flat car here, and as you can tell, this car is already assembled and has a wood load glued to it. Now, for this build here, everybody started asking me to do these do this video after I'd already built all of my F30 flat cars for my welded rail train. So naturally, when everybody was asking me to do that, I went on eBay and put the old price to the lowest first and bought the cheapest car I could find, and that happened to be this one with the wood load glued to it. So as you can see here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to screwball around here and try and get this wood load off here. It's going to fight us a little bit because whoever had this car before me on their road really glued this on there pretty good. But for you guys that maybe are newer or maybe haven't totally gotten a lot of the way I do things, I tend to try to keep things somewhat cheap. I know it might not look like that, but with a car like this, I think I paid less than $8 or $9 for this car. So I'll take an $8 or $9 car to repaint and redo anyway. So as you can see, we got some glue residue on there. Got our chisel blade. We're just going to take that off a little bit. Now, of course, my trusty sanding block there, we'll sand that out. We'll try and sand some of that glue off the top and just try to get it flat. I'm not really concerned if it's perfect or not because we're going to end up painting it and weathering it anyway. So it's not really a big deal if those aren't perfect. So now we'll go ahead and we're going to take our trucks and wheel sets off here because we're going to be swapping those out for roller bearing style ones down the road. I'll also be swapping the wheels out. This car had some nice metal wheels on it, but I prefer the semi-scale, I think it's Code 88 wheels, I believe, from Tangent. They're the more narrow style ones, and I just like how those look a lot better. But here we're fitting those on there. I'm also using the Conrail 100-ton trucks as well, the roller bearing style. Those tend to be what I go with. I buy them in a bulk package generally. And it looks like here I'm finding out that our screw isn't good, the original one. So we're going to go ahead and drill this out here and put a little bit longer screw through. Now, that's kind of a thing you run into when you buy a used freight car like this, is you never know what somebody else already did to it. So in this particular car, when I put the Conrail trucks on it, they were kind of wobbling around and they wouldn't tighten down all the way. And unfortunately, that meant I had to drill a hole all the way through the car and put a different screw in there. Now you'll say, well, Steve, that means if your screw's going all the way through like that, you're going to see it from the top. And you're not wrong, you will. But it's kind of one of those necessary evils there. I'd rather have a car that operates right than have a car that, looks perfect but doesn't operate right, if that makes any sense at all. You won't really notice that screw tip peeking through when we're all done weathering anyhow, because it's only sticking up a little bit. That's why I swapped the screws around. Now here you can see me using my favorite BBs here. And we're just going to add some weight to the bottom of these flat cars. These generally are pretty close to weight, direct from Bowser. I just like to add these BBs to the bottom just to really make sure I have as much weight on these as I can. Because with the flat car, they always tend to run a little bit light. And with these Bowser cars, you can add BBs like you're seeing here in this center section, and they're not visible. As you can see, you can fit about 5 on each of the ends if you fit them in there just right. I don't know exactly how much in the middle, but you just fill it up all the way, and that'll give you enough extra weight that you'll have a good operating car. See, we got some Hobby Bonds thick CA glue. This is the CA glue I use. I get it on eBay. It's just the cheapest bulk CA glue I could find. Oh, got to dump those BBs back in, the extra ones. Our J&L Innovative Design Welded Rail Rack Kit. Here you go. There's the number 784. Those are exactly what I'm using to do these here. Now we're going to start assembling these. These are a white metal kit. I haven't done a lot of work with the white metal stuff, but this kind of got me a little bit more doing some more with it. Generally, the castings are pretty good. You'll end up with a little flashing and stuff, as you can see here. That's why I swapped the blade out on my knife there. I want to use a duller one instead of a fresh, sharp one. Because basically all of these parts you have to go through and clean off that little bit of flashing along the edges of them. So I always use a dull blade, you know, like one that's not good enough to cut decals anymore, but still kind of sharp. That's generally what I'll use for something like this, because with this white metal, it's very easy to cut into it too much if you get a little too carried away. So just take your time and just run the blade along the edge, and it'll kind of pull that extra flashing off of there. And you can see we're just right along the edge, just wipe it off of there. And then you have to do that with these center sections as well as with all of the like actual rail holder pieces as well. You have to go through and do that same process with. So we'll get those prepared, we'll set them off to the side, and now these rail pieces, you have to do each edge here, as you can see on this each side of it. You have to clean up each edge to kind of round it off a little bit. And then these ends, you have to kind of trim them up as well, because they kind of end up a little funky. So you got to trim those up. And then we'll go ahead and I kind of look at the ends. There's one that's going to be more square than the other one. And when I'm first gluing these into place, I like to use the square end first, dip in a little CA glue. And we're just going to put it into the little notches on the inside of those triangle pieces. As you can see, I'm using a locomotive weight to kind of hold up that piece there and keep it straight. Don't rip your hair out on these guys. You could make yourself crazy trying to get these perfectly aligned and perfectly straight. And it's really quite a challenge. I just kind of get them as good as I can and live with it, so to speak. So what I like to do when I'm doing these here is I'll do one of the rail holders on one of the triangle pieces, you know, let it sit for a minute, and I'll go over and I'll start preparing the other side and just kind of alternate back and forth between doing each one of them. That way the glue has a little bit of time to set up, so you're not fighting those pieces falling over. Because that CA glue, it takes like 20 minutes, a half hour to really set up decent to where that piece will hold it, that rail rack piece will hold itself in place when you remove the weight from next to it so it doesn't fall over. So just take your time. Don't rush it too much. You do like I'm doing here and kind of start cleaning up a few of the next pieces in line, you know, and just kind of work your way through this stuff. Nice and easy. Don't rush it. Don't rush it, and don't rip your hair out when they don't fit perfect. You can see I pulled that weight back. That piece managed just to stand straight up and down. Now you can see me very carefully trying to put the next one in without bumping the first one, even though I just bumped the first piece. But we go ahead and we add it to our second side piece there. And again, just kind of trimming and cleaning up each of these rail pieces in between gluing them on, just to try and make best use of our time here so this doesn't take forever to do. I think when I was building these, it was taking me about an hour per pair of these to do, roughly an hour. Just because I was trying not to rush and making sure the glue would set up before I did anything. So just, you know, figure it's going to take you at least an hour to do all that. Maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. It just depends on how your CA glue kind of sets up. Now, while we're waiting for those sides to dry, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start preparing our car to put the different style handbrake on it here. And what we got to do here is we got to trim along one edge of the car here. As you can see, we're going to trim off like the first stake holder on the side. And a little bit of the edge there, because we want it to be a pretty flat surface. As you can see, I'm going in with that chisel blade there, and I'm just kind of taking that off or making that flat so we have a place to put the ratchet style handbrake on there. And I'm also shaving off where the original factory brake wheel went. Here is our ratchet brake there. HB 1016 is the Details West part number. And what I'm doing here is I'm drilling a little hole for the little piece of the handbrake to go into there on the side of the car. So this is like a two-piece handbrake deal here. There's like an arm that's the actual handbrake arm, and then there's like the backing piece. And that arm has a little nub on the back of it that sticks through, and it's not flush. So what I'll do is I drill that hole just to kind of use it as a guide. There you can see, got a little glue on that hole there. Now we're going to very carefully get some more CA glue on there and try and glue it to our car here. As you can see, it's sticking to my finger. See right there, all that glue's getting on my fingers there, and it's making that part stick to my finger there, because, you know, anytime you work with CA glue, you always end up with it places you don't want it, and that's just the way it goes. And then here we have some channel styrene here, because earlier on, I don't know if you guys can tell there, but I kind of goofed up and I caught the stake pockets with a chisel blade. As you can see right there, I'm holding that up because I want to fix that so it doesn't look terrible. But any of you guys ever think I'm perfect? I am definitely not. So I grabbed this polystyrene channel here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to take 2 pieces of it here, and we're going to glue it to the side of the car in the place that stake pocket was. And it's not going to be an exact match. There might actually be a styrene channel that would probably be an exact match, but this is what I had to work with. So we're just going to put a little bit of that, we're just going to put them on there like so. And as you can tell, it's a little bit not right. Okay, it doesn't look perfect, but when you paint it, you're not going to really notice it because it's just kind of going to disappear into the rest of the car. So a little inside baseball for you guys here. You know, I do mess things up and I do screw things up, and in this particular video I decided to just show you guys what I do when I screw up. So to kind of make it look pretty good, almost like it didn't happen, but it still definitely looks like I screwed that up. But when we paint it, you won't notice. So for any of you guys, when you're working on one of these cars and your chisel blade slips, now you kind of got a rough idea on how you can fix it and make it look decent. So putting that glue on there. And hey, look at that. Now we're going to go ahead and put the other 2 rack pieces on here. Like I mentioned earlier, I kind of try to do things in between letting the glue dry, so I'm not having to fight with those pieces falling apart and falling over. You can see getting a little glue on the ends of each one of those. And then we're going to put our other side of our rack on here. Now another little secret here. You're going to go to put that other side on. It's not going to want to line up at all. Just get it close. Nobody's going to notice. Because you're going to be going crazy trying to line up all those side pieces. So there we go. Putting that on there like so. And then we'll put that off the side and put a weight on top of it. The tricky part's getting that weight to balance on there and stay there. Alright, so now those have dried up a little pretty firm. And we can go ahead and move on to actually mounting them to the car. So get a little CA glue along the bottom again. And we're going to go ahead and we're just going to put them on the car about like so, right about there. Yep. And do the same process with the other end there. And once we have them on the car, I'll add these top 2 pieces left. These are the last 2 pieces of the welded rail rack kit. They're like a little top bar that goes across the top. Has glues on at the end because that's, you know, that's where it is. Now, for the fun part, we got to paint our car here. And if you look at the car on the left, that's the one we're building in the video. If you look at the car on the right, that's one of the ones I built earlier on. And the reason I'm showing you guys these is because of our 2 different paint colors. A bit of a sore subject with me. When I went to get paint, I ordered some Badger Model Flex Primer Gray. That's the part number right there, and that's the yellowish color that the primer gray actually is. It's not that grayish color in the picture, you know, with the primer logo. It's actually more of a yellowish color, and I was very, very frustrated with that because I ordered it thinking it would be primer gray and it'd be lighter. And then here is our MIG paint that we used on the first rounds, and this was almost too white. So it's just kind of been one of those go round and round with paints here lately. This is a MIG 119 is what I used on these, as well as I believe on the ballast cars when I built them. So you guys are going to watch me here. We got the our Badger primer paint here. And I should have known when it was a sandy color in the bottle, but I didn't think. I figured, oh, maybe it needs mixed up or something. And you can see I spray it on here, and I'm just kind of puzzled a bit, because I'm like right now I'm putting this on here going like, this is not primer gray, this is sand gray. And well, I just decided to roll with it, mainly because I didn't have any other of that MIG paint left over, and I wanted to get this car painted and over with. And you see there's our primer gray, and thumbs down. Wasn't too happy with it. Well, let's go ahead and let's assemble our car anyway. You can see it dried a little bit later, but it still doesn't look... it still has that like yellowish tone to it. So once our paint's dry here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start our reassembly here. We're going to go ahead and take our painting trucks off and put our regular trucks back on, as well as install our couplers. Now for this build, I just used the KD whatever's came with it. A lot of times I'll use KD 158s is generally what I'll use. But when I'm building like a unit train like this, or something where it's going to be like 30 or 40 of the same kind of car, and they're all just going to be hooked together, I'll generally run whatever KDs I've gotten on stuff. You know, like a good example would be like if I bought a Rapido car, essentially. You get like a Rapido box car or one of their Flexi Flows or something. They'll have that generic KD metal style coupler. And on a car like that, I'll put a 158 on it, and I'll have the leftover couplers. I'll use those on something like this, because they're still a good coupler, but they don't look good enough for a single car. Now here I have my decals. I got these from Circus City Decals. I had these custom made for my welded rail train. Shout out to Circus City. Awesome to deal with. Any of you that have had custom decals know that it's not really the cheapest thing to do. But in the instance of this, where I'm building an entire train of these, I saw it fit to just spend the money and get the decals made so they're right. And Circus City was absolutely excellent to deal with. I look forward to getting more decals from them in the future on other projects when I get to them. So, but it was nice because you can see the decals are all laid on the sheet in the order they have to go on the car and everything already. So all I got to do is trim around them, cut them out, and put them on the car. I'm using some of the blue micro scale stuff. I can't remember if that's micro sol or micro set. It's the blue stuff, and I actually have it watered down a little bit, just because it kind of, when you're using custom decals like these, I don't know what they use to make them, and I don't like to use like the full-on Solva set or the full-on micro scale stuff, because I don't want to mess up the decals. So you should see we're just kind of taking, we dip the decals in the stuff, let them soak for a minute, and then put them on the car. Nothing too crazy here. Just kind of going off of my prototype photos. Now, one thing I didn't note earlier, but I'll note now because I'm remembering it here. These F41 cars are not an exact match for the Conrail welded rail cars, but they're kind of the most cost-effective route to go to build a welded rail train, because these Bowser kits, you can pick them up for $10 or less generally, whereas I believe Intermountain made the proper 929F car, I believe, but they're $30-$40 each, and I just couldn't justify spending that much money to build a welded rail train that nobody's really going to notice if the car's a hair shorter than it should be. They're just going to see welded rail racks and think it's awesome looking. So when we go to decal the car here, that's the first time you could really notice. If you put a prototype photo up, you'd see that it's like, it is a little bit shorter, but it's just, it's so much of a, it just makes it more doable doing a build like this and doing a whole train of these cars, just making things economically feasible. And you can see now that I got all the decals on one side, I'm going back and just doing a little straightening up here and there. And okay, we got our decals on. We got our clear coat on as well. I use Krylon Crystal Clear. It's a flat acrylic clear coat in a spray can. And now we're starting our weathering process. Of course, longtime viewers know my favorite part here, we're painting the wheels, because painting the wheels and painting the track are two of the most important parts of model railroading, as far as getting things to look realistic. Nothing's going to stand out more than if you have this beautiful car that's weathered beautifully and your wheels aren't painted. You got to paint the wheels, guys. Got to do it. And I'm just using some brown acrylic paint. I believe this is burnt umber, if I'm not mistaken, or it's some kind of brown acrylic paint, just craft acrylic, nothing fancy. And it's just, that rustier colored brown. Now here I'm using some of my favorite weathering stuff here. This is a Vallejo Rust Texture, It's 73.821 is the part item number. But you can see this stuff, it's just awesome. I love using this stuff, especially for a base coat for weathering. So here you can see I'm just literally just brushing this on here heavy. And one thing I'll say about using this stuff is you just brush it on there heavy. You don't want it to be like really even per se. You just want to make sure you get coverage on everything. And you can go heavy in some spots, light in another, and it'll give you that like heavier rust spots and lighter rust spots. And it's just a really, really good base coat for weathering. Like with these cars here, what the whole way I weathered these ones was I plastered this stuff on the deck as well as on the rail racks. And then once this stuff dried, I went back with just weathering powder and just literally just brushed the powder over top of it, just to kind of blend things a little bit. But I didn't, sit there for half an hour making little rust streaks with the powder or anything. I just blasted it on there, put it on there. So now we got all that done. We got it clear coated. We're going to go ahead and do one of the final steps I have here before I take this car over to lay out and run it. And this is one of those things, sometimes I show it, sometimes I don't. But what I like to do with all these cars, I trim my coupler trip pins because they always find places to catch on and annoy me. And what I'll do here is, you can see we got our KD's Greasem here. It's like a little, it's like little graphite flakes. And what you do is you spritz a little bit of that on each side of the truck there. And then you take your wheels and you work the points around in the little area inside the truck where they sit. And that like kind of lubricates that inside. It really, really makes the wheel sets roll way, way better. And it's kind of one of my little hacks I found out a few years ago, and I've done it on every single car I've built since. And boy, did it, everything always rolls really smooth when you do that. So if any of you haven't heard of this yet, I recommend definitely get some of this stuff and do it. You won't be disappointed. Your cars will roll amazingly. So we'll go ahead and we'll put those back on, and that's going to about wrap up this video here. I want to apologize, it's taken me way too long to get this video done, but I'll talk more about things in the layout update here in another week or two about what's going on. But really, this is a pretty simple build, nothing too overly complicated, but as you can see, you end up with a whole train of these welded rail cars, and they look excellent. So as always, guys, I'm CR Steve, and I'd like to thank all of you for watching. Let me know your comments down below on what you think about building these, whether you've built any, whether you want to build some, and of course, what do you think of the ones I built? They're not too bad. They're not perfect, but they're not too bad, and that's what we go for here. So as always, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.